about the World Series. We got the Astros. We got the Phillies. Peter thinks that one of those teams is going to win. I think Arm and I think that the other team is going to win because that's how this works. Peter did not pick this because he felt strongly about it. He picked it because Jack and Arm were going the other way. But you got all three of us. Just Baseball Show. Thursday, October 27th. Phillies, Stros. What's going on? It's going to be Nola and likely Verlander game one. Game two going to be Wheeler and likely Valdez. And then you go to what? Ranger and Javier. And then game four, we'll see what the Phillies do. And then the Astros side is going to be McCullers. Dude, tough. Where do we want to start?
First, I want to start by turning around the lie you just said off the top. Because I wrote my betting preview on justbaseball.com before I even heard your guys' predictions. And I hope that you guys read it. And then now you have picks on the other side. So I actually think I came out with my pick first and that both of you think I'm stupid. So you're going the other way rather than the other way around. So I'd like it on record that Jack lied off the top and my correction will be correct, or my prediction will be correct.
And I just sat here. I didn't do anything. I didn't do anything. My hands are clean. I read the gambling preview. We'll get into like some of the little things too, because I'm very fascinated by the idea of who could win the MVP for the World Series. I think that'll be a very fun conversation. Obviously, we'll talk about the whole series. I'm interested in, and this was something I was thinking about like when I was in bed last night. I was like, how are we going to talk about the World Series? Because obviously I could set the stage of Astros really good, Phillies really hot. What's going to give? That's, of course, the narrative here. But what is the feasible way that the inferior team on paper beats the better team? How do the Phillies win this World Series is how I really want to start this off with everybody's thoughts on this. Like what, and you predicted it in the gambling article, and then I want to hear Jack's thoughts too. How do the Phillies win this World? They can obviously do it. It's baseball. Anything can happen. But I would love to like talk it out. How do the Phillies do this thing? How do they beat one of the more well-constructed teams we've seen in a long time?
Do you think that before we do that, kind of talk about how both of these two teams got here, right? The track to get here, because both were really, really different. The Astros were supposed to be here, and the Phillies weren't supposed to be here. The Astros won 7 straight games to get here. The Phillies were underdogs in every series, I guess, except the Padres, but they acted as the favorites in every single series. Because I think it's interesting, right? The Braves were statistically much better than the Phillies. And look how that series ended up.
Yeah.
But, you know, I was on the phone with Jack and, you know, we were having a good conversation. And Arm, we were just in the Just Baseball office where you can see that you're recording right now. We were just talking about momentum. And while the Phillies were hot, like I'm going to go through my entire thought process probably later when we get to actually dissecting the series. But Jack made a very important point about will the break that we've experienced between the end of the championship series to the World Series actually halt the Phillies' momentum? I think it's an interesting discussion too. And we're going to get to all that, but why don't we start with how these two teams got here, right?
Yeah. All right. So we'll start with the Astros, who are 7-0 in this postseason so far, despite Jose Altuve not getting a hit until his final game of the ALCS. It's a 7-0 team that really doesn't feel like a 7-0 team because it was a Robbie Ray cement mixing slider that ended the Mariners in game one of the ALDS, right? Yordan Alvarez with that walk-off shot. After that, it was this back and forth game two, and Yordan with that opposite field homer that found the Crawford boxes sealed the deal in game two. Then the Stros win a game 1-0 in 18 innings to sweep the Mariners, which was just crazy. And then the Yankees, the Yankees sucked offensively. I don't want to spend any more time on the Yankees because we spent enough time on the Yankees on the Monday episode, I think that was. But the Yankees didn't hit, yet they still found themselves in pretty much every game. So this is a team that by no means is hot. They've just been better than the two teams that they've seen previously. And you can't say that about the Phillies, right? The Phillies were the team that might have gotten by with St. Louis beating themselves in the wild card series. And then you go to the NLDS and it was some big time homers from Bryce Harper. Yes, it was a couple of good homers from Rhys Hoskins, but it was just a pouring on. And Zach Wheeler helped the offense to take down the defending champs. And then obviously we saw magic happen offensively for the Phillies in the NLCS.
And even before that, like just the Astros from the beginning of the year, like I said, that they were supposed to be here. The Astros opened it as minus 140 to win their division. They had the lowest odds in the American League at plus 450, and they had the second best odds at plus 900. Carlos Correa leaves, and they plug in a rookie from the University of Maine, a third rounder. His name was Jeremy Pena, who ended up winning the ALCS MVP. I think the starting rotation was better than I think people thought. And I think people thought that it would be one of the best. Like, I think people thought that Justin Verlander would be great. Did we think that he could win a Cy Young? And I don't know if he will, but I think it's assumed at this point that he will win the Cy Young.
I would be shocked if he didn't.
Like, Framber Valdez takes that next leap. Christian Javier transitions from like a bullpen swingman role to one of the best pitchers in the American League. You know, Lance McCullers is still kind of banged up and then comes back in August and is dominant. Luis Garcia fills in a great back end role, just dominant once again. And Jose Urquidy even had an ERA under 4. And then you get to the bullpen. They had a 2.80 bullpen ERA. It was the best in the sport. But even during the trade deadline, they weren't crazy electric. They didn't need to be. Trey Mancini, who has been probably the worst hitter in the postseason for them. Christian Vasquez has acted as a backup catcher, and I think Christian Vasquez would be the starter on 15 other teams. I don't think that's too much. And even Will Smith. Like, have we even barely seen Will Smith in the playoffs this season?
Yeah.
And then they swept their way. They had a 219 run differential. They should be here.
I agree. And the craziest part is I would have said, a big reason why they were so dominant in the regular season beyond the pitching is what Jose Altuve did this year. Yes. And that's the wild part is the Astros are here and winning through the postseason. They haven't lost yet. And Jose Altuve hasn't done anything, right? He's been horrible, as Jack mentioned, in the postseason. This year was arguably one of his best seasons of his career. I would say probably his second best besides 2017, where he had a 7.5 F4 at age 27. But to do what he did this year, 6.6 F4, 164 WRC plus, was one of the best all-around players in the game. I mean, 28 homers, 18 bags. Everything was great for him this year, and they're winning without him. Like, couldn't you see Altuve just kick it into gear and in this World Series? Because this is a guy that he's been there. He's struggled. He's had highs, lows, everything in between. I don't really expect him to let this mount. He showed some signs of life in the championship series, but all that to say, Kyle Tucker didn't take the leap that I thought he was going to make. I highlighted him as an MVP candidate. I thought he was going to take that big leap. He didn't. He had a good year, but he didn't take that huge jump. Altuve ended up being the guy that really bounced back. Bregman makes that big turnaround this year and looks like the guy that, he was, that we kind of discredited. I did. I was like, oh, maybe he was one of the bigger benefactors from the scandal. Clearly, he's figured things out. He was not healthy and looks really good again. I just look at this team and there's so many different guys that can step up for the Astros. But the thing about the Phillies is you can make that same case. It might not be as sexy, but Rhys Hoskins can step up, get hot, and win you a series. JT Realmuto can impact the game in so many ways. I mean, he's the best catcher in baseball, and there's no doubt about it. Bryce Harper, as we've seen, can carry you. Schwarber, when he's hot, goes on stretches that are unparalleled in the game's history. He's up there with anybody. If you go by stretches, I was using that on StatHead because you can go on streaks. Some of his streaks rival anybody who's ever played the game. So that's what's really interesting about this. We always talk about the postseason being who can get hot at the right time. What scares me about the Astros is they haven't even gotten hot yet. The Phillies have gotten hot. That's how they got here. Can that wave keep going, or are the Astros going to get hot and make this thing short?
So again, we circle back to what you brought up, Peter. It's, did the break hurt the Phillies, right? Did they cool off, or is it going to be the Astros, get this break when their offense is finally starting to click and they're all of a sudden out of rhythm again? It's a really hard question, and I'm blanking on who tweeted this out, but I saw this a couple days ago. There were 2 guys that threw for the Houston Astros this year that finished the year with an ERA over 4. Ronel Blanco 7 appearances, totaling 6 1/3 innings, had a 7.11 ERA. And then Pedro Baez through 2 1/3 innings for the Houston Astros. He allowed 3 earned runs.
Like, we call the Astros perfect. They're not perfect. I mean, look at that. Those 13 innings sucked.
What I will say is, and I actually think those were 8 2/3 innings that I just mentioned. Yeah, 8 2/3 innings. So fewer than 9 innings.
Not even a game.
By guys, not even a game, have been thrown by guys with an ERA over 4. And I wish I had this tweet in front of me, because it was either they were the first team to ever do that, or they were the first team since, Old Hoss was.
What was the first name that you said? Because I guarantee you that's going to be the only tweet with that guy's name in it.
Ronel Blanco.
Okay. I'll get back to you in a second. We'll credit the right person.
Query. Nice action there. But yeah, man, I mean, this team was like, just sticking on the Stros for a minute, they were as close to perfect as we've seen a team in quite some time.
Yes.
And
it was Jeremy Frank.
Jeremy Frank. There we go.
It's the third Ronel Blanco related tweet that I was able to find. It did not take very long.
What did Jeremy Frank say? Can you read it?
Yeah. So Jeremy Frank at MLB Random Stats. Every player who has pitched for the Astros this year, besides Ronel Blanco, 6.1 innings pitched, and Pedro Baez, 2.1 innings pitched, has an ERA under 4. That means 99.3% of their innings have come from sub-4 ERA pitchers. The last team to finish a year with a higher percentage was the 1979 Orioles, which was 100%. And was that not the Orioles team that had 4 20-game winners?
Yeah, is that the Jim Palmer era?
Yeah, that's 4 20-game winners over there. Yeah, that's a fucking insane stat.
Yeah. They are perfect. I'm telling you. And we talk about their offensive approach, and Arm's done a great job, vocalizing this, where they are the combination of the Guardians of the Yankees, where they can hit home runs. They take the good from the Yankees, but they shed all the bad, and they don't swing and miss that much. They don't punch out that much. So that's offensively, right? You've got some great stars. You've got a future Hall of Famer in Jose Altuve, a guy that some believe is already better than David Ortiz and Yordan Alvarez. And then, I mean, you've got like top to bottom. Yuli Gurriel just won a batting title last year, and here he is leading the Astros in hits in the postseason.
The American League in
led the
batting
American
average.
League in batting average because he hit like 319 or something. But that's the offense. The defense, excellent, right? Jeremy Pena's a Gold Glove finalist. That outfield, there's hard to find anything that is flawed, and they're starting a catcher that can't fucking hit because he's so good defensively.
Yep.
And then pitching, you roll out a sub-4 ERA guy, whoever you go to. This team has no weakness, right?
Jack, just to quantify on defense, because in the article I listed out like where they stacked up in the regular season. And the 2 areas that jumped out at me the most, which is something that I didn't really expect, was how well the Phillies starting rotation from top to bottom. Remember, it gets even better because most of the games that we're going to get are Wheeler, Nolan, Suarez, but there was also plenty of Kyle Gibson sprinkled in there, Bailey Falter, Noah Syndergaard, all these guys. But I'm not going to get into, we'll talk about the Phillies, but the thing that jumped out at me about the Astros was how good they were on defense this year. By defensive WAR, they had the 4th best team on defense by WAR. Outs above average, they were 2nd. UZR by 150, 4th. Defensive runs saved, 5th. So not only, to your point, where they take the good and the good from these teams were contact-oriented guys, but then we haven't even really talked about how good Yordan is, probably the 2nd best overall hitter in the sport this year by WRC+. But then also they pick it like they're a run prevention team when we look at the bullpen, the starting rotation, but anything in play, they gobble up like nobody's business, but they don't strike out either. They hit for as much power as anybody. If we're looking on offense, like this team had the 4th best ISO and had 214 home runs, which was 4th in baseball, while having one of the best contact-oriented offenses. There is no weaknesses here. This is about as well-rounded of a baseball team that we have seen in the decade. It's incredible what the Astros can do day in and day out.
The case for the Phillies, though, too, which I think is interesting. And Peter, you've mentioned this, kind of when we were getting into the postseason. I forget what team you were using this 0.4. It might have been for the Phillies, actually. But we talk about that stat specifically, and it kind of jogged this thought for me that Jeremy Frank stat is, of course, that's great for the regular season, but the Phillies have been able to trim the fat that got them through the regular season and maybe, skewed some of those numbers, right? We're talking about a second half ERA from Kyle Gibson that was over 6, right?
Horrible.
That guy's not thrown in the postseason, right? We're talking about a Noah Syndergaard who he has thrown sparingly in this postseason, but was pitching a lot more in the regular season for the Phillies because you play every freaking day. But when the Phillies trim the fat and focus on those key players, and those guys are up there with anybody, right? Like, that's the interesting thing. We talk about the Nola Wheeler combination. We talk about what Jose Alvarado did in the second half. By the way, it was a 1.1 FIP in the second half with nearly 15 strikeouts per 9. What we saw from Sir Anthony Dominguez, David Robertson. So yeah, they might not have that 40-man deep of just ridiculous talent that the Astros have. But the reality is when you get to the postseason, you just need those core guys. You just need those starters and a few bullpen arms. And that's exactly what has gotten the Phillies here, right? And I think this is what's going to allow the Phillies to compete. Is the only way where really will skew Astros ways if we see one of those 17-inning games again that we saw against the Mariners, and it's just a pitching depletion. That's where, of course, it goes towards the Astros. But when it comes to just playing a series here, top-end talent, Phillies stack up with anybody, and I think that's why they're here.
Yeah, I just want to address that point because I'm glad you brought it up because I used it on 3 different teams when we were first talking. One was the Toronto Blue Jays, who ended up just getting bum rushed by the Mariners. It was the San Diego Padres, who I didn't think would beat the Dodgers, but fell into that category where you trim the Sean Manaea fat and you focus on Yu Darvish, Blake Snell, and Joe Musgrove.
And then your star hitters
the back end with, Luis Garcia, Robert Suarez, Josh Hader, and the offense. Like, that's what you need. And then it was the Phillies where you trim off all the garbage, like in the middle innings, in the 5th and the 4th inning in the bullpen, and the back end starting pitchers who don't tend to matter anymore. Those are the teams that have been successful in the playoffs. Like, I hate how every one of these teams now gets compared to the 2019 Nationals, because it's like, it's just a team that didn't win the division, didn't crush, but then got hot in the playoffs. But I think if you are going to use that comparison, the perfect team to do it with is the Philadelphia Phillies. Like, I think the Phillies were not supposed to be here. They opened as plus 325 underdogs to win the NL East. They had the same odds as the Angels to win the World Series at plus 3,000. That was 14th. But then, and in the offseason, they doubled down on not having defense, right? They signed Kyle Schwarber. They signed Nick Castellanos. They added veterans like Brad Hand, Corey Knebel, and Jerry's Familia, who Brad Hand was like the guy to blow it. Corey Knebel, I think, is hurt, and Jerry's Familia isn't even on the Phillies. But then, they had a tough start, and then they got rid of Joe Girardi. They added Rob Thompson. And then after Girardi left, they went 65-46. They traded, and what was great, what the Phillies did that the Yankees didn't do, is they admitted they were wrong. Mickey Moniak is no longer a Philly. They didn't just ride him out and see, we drafted him first overall. The stats are going to regress towards the positive at some point. No, they got rid of him. They traded Logan O'Hoppe, who I know you love as a prospect, Arm, and they got Brandon Marsh, who helps on defense now. Like, this team was top 10 in basically every single stat. They add Jose Alvarado. Bryce Harper is standing on his head. And in those offensive stats where they were top 10 for most of the year, Bryce Harper wasn't on offense for them for a good chunk of that year. And now when you look at the stats, that's why I was so impressed when I look back on the Phillies' overall stats from the regular season, how good they were, even with all the missteps and injuries along the way.
We should have known that Philly was going to do this when they traded O'Hoppe for Brandon Marsh. We should have known. Right? I mean, we should have been able to see through that. Pop-up prospect, easy top 100 guy, probably a top 50 guy. Here we are swapping him for what was considered a failed outfielder, right? Even though he's still, 24, 25 years old, Brandon Marsh, and he's in his second year of Major League Baseball. We should have known that the Phillies were going to do something special when they started to do shit like that.
Yeah, in a vacuum, that trade was wild to me. I get it because O'Hoppe fast-tracked his trajectory to the big leagues, and will be the starting catcher, I think, for the Angels next year. But, they bought low on Brandon Marsh, a guy that I think the Angels would have had no interest in trading prior to the season. It was the Angels actually that nixed the negotiations of Max Meyer for Brandon Marsh and that was Max Meyer at the peak of his value with the Marlins top pitching prospect before Yuri Perez, really peaked there. So, it was a bold move. And again, it's just those bold moves by Dombrowski really played out well. Brandon Marsh in the second half was spectacular. Yeah. 114 WRC plus to go with the speed and the defense that he offers. We talked about the Edmundo Sosa, addition as well, and what that did for the team. And then also just getting Bryson Stott right and trusting him and letting him work through things. And the fact that Stott turned it around, I think, is a huge aspect of this, both Stott and Bohm. Both of those guys, did they light it up in the second half? No, but they turned it around to the point, both defensively and offensively, to just be those accentuating pieces. That's all they need. You've got Real Muto, Schwarber, Harper, Hoskins, even Segura. You don't need these guys to be superstars just yet. Just don't be gaping holes in the lineup. And we look at some of these other teams that really good at the top, really falls off in the back end. Stott and Bohm carried their weight. That was all they needed to do. And I think that's a big reason why they are where they are too. Helping their young guys get better as the year went on, I think, was one of the biggest factors that gets overlooked with this ball club.
You guys want to play a game? You want to go position by position defensively and say who has the edge?
On defense or
just all around?
All around, just like quality of player.
Yeah, let's do that. Let's talk about Manscaped, and then let's give our overall predictions, how we think the series is going to unfold.
That's what I'm thinking. The way that I'm kind of thinking this is we go around the diamond. Who's got the edge? Manscaped. Get ready for that, folks.
Balls.
And then I wanted, like, who has the edge? Lineup, defense, rotation, bullpen. And then we give our thoughts. And then I do want to have that MVP conversation to end it. But let's fly around. Let's start behind the plate. Maldonado and Vasquez against JT Realmuto. This is very easily Phillies.
Yep.
But that's a big position to kill. Like, Real Muto is the best catcher. Armstead himself, like, by far. Like, that is a big edge. That's all I wanted to say.
Yeah, no, that's like massive. It's
catcher
not even
in the
close
postseason
either. Like, I know Maldonado is great defensively, but
Real Muto is better defensively.
Arguably as good or better defense and a phenomenal bat. Like, it's crazy.
So first base, you're comparing Rhys Hoskins and Yuli Gurriel. I like Hoskins.
Totally different players. It's crazy too.
It couldn't be more opposite. I like, if we're building a team, right? Like, you could pick from one or the other. I'm taking Hoskins, right? But Hoskins is such a liability defensively. I know I don't care about defense that much at first.
You won our tinfoil glove.
You won your tinfoil glove. I mean, you got to go Hoskins though. I know Gurriel's been hot, but I mean, Hoskins is just on a different level power.
Hoskins has 5 bombs and 11 ribbies. He's tied for the postseason lead with Bryce in both those.
Also, Rhys Hoskins at Citizens Bank Park is Frank Thomas. So I'll take Rhys Hoskins, but it is close.
I'm thinking Gene Segura over whoever the second baseman is for Houston, right?
Yeah.
This is where the Astros take the edge.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, short, it's Pena over Stott.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
By a wide margin or no?
Kind of.
I would say it's fairly wide because of what he does on both sides of the ball, right? Like, what he does defensively, which you guys talked about, and then offensively, I think he's a better hitter too. Like, Stott's a better bat to ball guy, whatever, but Pena's going to give you those big hits, man.
Is he better bat to ball guy? I think
technically speaking, yes, but like right now, the way Pena's swinging it too.
I would go out on a limb and I'd say there's nothing that Bryson Stott does better than Jeremy Pena right now.
Grow hair.
Okay, there's one.
Yeah.
About it.
That's it. Third base, not even close.
Third base, not even close.
Bregman.
Bohm over Bregman.
Bregman taller.
And I want to like eat crow on that one too, real quick. Like, I've been a big Bregman hater.
Yeah, but who hasn't been?
Yeah, no, I know. But for me, it was like looking at his numbers against breaking balls.
Yeah, terrible.
Both pre and post, that whole thing. It was too perfect. But my goodness, his swinging strike rate is non-existent. He doesn't chase. He hits the ball hard. And it seems like health was a big factor for him. So Bregman, I mean, not only does he have the advantage, we'll revisit him towards the end of the podcast because I'm going to make a case about him. But yeah, third base for sure, Bragg.
If you lift the hood if you look under it, Alex Bregman might be the best hitter in this postseason on the Houston Astros. Like series over series.
Oh,
he's
yeah.
like
yeah,
a 330 hitter with a bunch of home runs and doing everything.
There's been no
phenomenally,
ups
but
and
hasn't
downs.
gotten the
He's
love.
just steady Eddie. I agree. He's just been
Yeah.
consistent. Like Jordan's had the big moments, but
Exactly.
he's also
Pena.
slumped in stretches. Like I agree. I mean, it's been a model of consistency from Alex Bregman.
So here's the thing about Bregman. When he was younger, obviously 2017, he debuted in 2016, I want to say, maybe ended 2015, but very young in his major league career when this shit was happening. And obviously still a young guy when he was dealing with all of the repercussions from that.
Yep.
And he, much like Harper, although I think it's more warranted, the hate on Bregman than it was on Harper early in his career, was a bona fide shithead. Like Bregman, what he said was douchey. Bregman was a douchebag at the beginning of his career.
But
now
I've liked the interviews so far.
I've loved the interviews in the postseason. I was going to say, like, it's really hard for me to hate him right now.
No, I'm with you. Especially they interviewed him right after they clinched, right? And I'm like, man, this guy's well spoken.
I was like, damn it.
He seems like he's taking it in. He's appreciative. Like it was like, damn, applaud for maturity, and it's been really cool to see. And I mean, I'm sure he's a leader in what they're doing there too. I'm sure his teammates, we could talk all the shit about him. People can call him a cheater and whatever, but I can guarantee you he leads in that clubhouse along with Altuve and Verlander. I guarantee those are the guys that are leading the way for them.
I want the meditation program that he's on. I want the sage that he's burning in that clubhouse.
Yeah.
Yeah. How about gain some inches to your height, shorty?
Yeah.
That's no height shaming on this podcast. Yeah. No height shaming.
All right, left field. Schwarber and who? It's kind of been a revolving door for the Astros, right? Like
Jordan plays left for them.
Yeah, he does. But do you want to call him left or do you want to call him DH? Holy titanic battle between Yordan Alvarez and Bryce Harper in the DH department.
Who's going to be starting in left field game
Yordan.
One? So let's say Jordan plays left and we're putting him against Kyle Schwarber.
Jordan.
But
Schwarber is capable of getting hot enough to be better.
Exactly.
Yes.
Which is crazy.
Exactly it.
Which is crazy.
But as we just rounded out the infield, it was 3-2 in favor of the Astros. Now it is 4-2. But remember, we were looking at some video. What do you think about Jordan against high heat up in the zone?
I mean, yeah, it's been his one little gap there.
Little edges.
That's a tough place to try to locate on Jordan, because if you tug it down 3 inches, it's gone.
It's gone.
I'm not too worried. Schwarber's got some gaps too, some blue zones. I promise.
You think so?
Yeah.
No,
you think he's got a little swing and miss?
He's got some blue zones. It's Jordan, absolutely. That really kind of skews it now towards the Astros center field.
4-2.
Chaz and Marsh.
You know what's crazy? Chas McCormick in the playoffs so far has an 898 OPS.
No, he's been spectacular.
And he's cheating because he throws left-handed and hits right-handed, which shouldn't be allowed.
I think that's the worst thing you could ever do. Like I would, like Tua Tagovailoa is actually a natural righty, and his dad just made him throw lefty.
Ben Simmons.
Yeah, that's another crazy one. If my kid is not a pitcher, man, I'm going to do everything in my power to make sure he throws righty. But that said, McCormick, 27 years old, like really came into his own this year. 114 WRC plus over the course of the season. I love what we saw from Marsh. I love where he's headed. I think Marsh ultimately is the better player by the time it's all said and done. But at this point, I got to take Chas McCormick.
I want to call it a push. I feel like they're very, very similar. They're both going to be silky smooth in the outfield. Jack and I like to use that term because there's only a few terms that you could use in the outfield. And I think they're both going to hit enough to not be holes in the lineup. Like, I don't see this guy's better because of this, or this guy's better because of this. I would call it a push. Jack, I don't know where you're at.
So I'm just pulling up the regular season numbers right now. Chaz hit 245 with a 739 OPS this year. 245, 739 OPS. Brandon Marsh in the regular season hits 245, but with a 679 OPS. I will lean Chaz.
I think that's fine.
Playoffs haven't been kind to Brandon either.
Yeah, and McCormick has an 898 OPS, so I will go Chaz. I think that's
I'll lean
fair.
Chaz. And then right, you got Castellanos and Kyle Tucker. I know where I'm leaning here.
Nick Castellanos.
Yeah.
Tom
I think you got. I mean,
It's Kyle Tucker easily.
It's crazy that Kyle Tucker has a better bat, and the defense isn't even on the same planet.
Not even close. Not even
So
close.
that's 6-2 in favor of the Astros.
Damn. And then DH Harper and whoever the
Harper.
fuck, give me Harper. So 6-3.
Harper. 6-3.
6-3.
Okay.
It's funny,
And-
those gaps, though, like the Harper Real Muto gaps, are the biggest gaps you can find.
Yeah.
But the Astros have a better team. Like, that's the whole discussion. That's why Astros Phillies is so fascinating.
Altuve and Gene, you don't think that's a big gap?
That's a pretty big
You know
gap.
what? There's one big gap. All right. Fine.
But I mean, no, the catcher gap is at the literally, like Peter said, one of the most important positions. Like Real Muto can be a big, as we know, big difference maker in this thing. So obviously, this is not the way baseball is played, but it is fun to go around that way. When you go rotationally, obviously way deeper for the Astros, but with the top three,
Let's do it. Let's do it.
top three. Like combine them all because I don't want to go like head to head each pitcher. Let's just say who are the top three in this series for the Astros versus the top. Here's the problem though. If this goes 7, that's where the Astros really have the advantage because obviously we know it's way better 1 through 5. But just for conversation's sake, top 3, Nola, Wheeler, and then
Suarez
versus
Verlander, Valdez, Javier.
Or McCullers. I don't know who's going to be that game 3 starter.
So-
I would pitch Javier if I'm them.
I think game 4 is the biggest game of the World Series. I'm calling it before then. I think game 4 is the single biggest game of the World Series because it'll be McCullers or Javier against Bailey Falter in the bullpen or Wheeler on short rest.
No, I think it's
would be
say
Nola on short rest.
Nola on short rest. Nola's going
Nola
game 1.
or Nola on short rest.
I think you have to. This is the only way you steal this series, and I don't want to call it steal, but the only way that you pull this thing off is Nola on short rest.
Nola 3 times.
Nola 3 times, Wheeler twice, Ranger twice.
It's the only fucking way.
Only
way. I'm with you.
And if these guys can handle it, I mean, we know Nola's been an innings eater, and that's what's really big about it. And that's why I don't hate the we'll get to the MVP in a little bit
do you think that's kind of why Rob did that? Because Wheeler and Nola are probably working on like pretty identical rest here.
Yeah, I mean,
Wheeler has one less
obviously-
day.
What?
I think Wheeler has one less day than Nola.
So
But he could have went to either. They both have their proper rest.
Is it proper
Yeah.
for Wheeler? I think
Yeah.
it is.
Yeah, I think so because he
It
flew
is.
on Sunday.
Both
I think
of them are,
Nola
like,
just has
comfortable.
more.
That's a typical rest day.
So I think that's a fair point. Wheeler's been a little banged up, and obviously Nola has been a guy that just churns out innings. I think the plan is we're gonna ride Nola as far as we can, and I think they're happy to go next season and have him skip a few starts if they have to. I mean, this is what it's all for, right? This is what it's all about. I think that's a fair assumption there, Jack, that the plan is we're going to ride Nola Mad Bum style if we have to. That's the only way we're winning this series. And man, would that be awesome to see Nola take that Mad Bum roll and just go crazy.
And another wrinkle in this, Nola's last start of the regular season
Mhm.
was a 7-inning shutout
Carved.
performance in Houston.
10 Ks?
Something
I think
like
so.
that.
Double
I mean, he
digit
just
Ks, I'm
shot.
positive.
No
Yeah.
hits or 1 hit. He allowed the hit in the 7th.
1 or 2, maybe.
Yeah, it was it's a good point, Peter. Like he's red hot off of that too.
Okay, now counterpoint though, he really struggled in his last appearance.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, but it's almost like the Padres were due there, right? That was in San Diego. Like that was one of those series that you just split. Like that's why we're going to talk about it game by game when we do our predictions. And it's like sometimes you just split regardless of who. You have one team coming off a high. You have another team that is in a must-win situation because you can't go down 2-0 going on the road. And they had to have that win. And like Nola just walked into the fire on that one. That's why when I was talking about like who I think is the best pitcher in this postseason so far, and I said Zach Wheeler, I took nothing away from that Nola start. Absolutely nothing. Because I was like, that's just playoff baseball. Like I feel like Cy Young, Nolan Ryan, if they had a baby and then that they started in that game against the Padres, like the Padres win that game because that's just playoff baseball.
I actually disagree in part because I don't think that Cy Young and Nolan Ryan could concoct a baby. I don't know who would be the one birthing that baby.
And I think Cy Young.
Sir, carefully here.
Yeah.
Why? Why? Follow up naturally.
I'm going to move on. Let's move on.
Speaking of reproduction, support for the Just Baseball.
Manscaped.
Roll with this.
Yeah.
Support for the Just Baseball Show brought to you by Manscaped, who is the best in men's below the waist grooming. Their products are precision engineered tools for your family jewels. Manscaped's Performance Package, the ultimate men's hygiene bundle. Join over 6 million men worldwide. That's about 12 million balls who trust Manscaped with this exclusive offer just for you. 20% off and free worldwide shipping with the code JBSHOW. All caps, JBSHOW, JBSHOW.
Can I be honest? Can I? Oh, no, continue. Sorry. I just want to be honest about these kind of products.
I was going to say, you're holding part of the Performance Package 4.0. You're holding the Lawnmower 4.0, which is state-of-the-art genital grooming.
Waterproof.
It has a light built in.
And do it in the shower. Look at that. A light for you there. So this is obviously the best trimmer that you're going to find. And the nose trimmer, which is also in there, is also the best trimmer that you're going to find. But I don't want to talk about those because those are a given. Those are fantastic. You're not going to find anything better. I want to talk about these two products here. The Crop Preserver Ball Deodorant combined with the Crop Reviver Toner.
Toner.
Gentlemen. I didn't think that these would do anything, right? I was like, I want the trimmers and that's what I want. But the Performance Package includes these. I can't stop using them. They smell amazing. It has now become a part of my routine to do a couple sprays of these, to do the ball deodorant, and I'm over the moon. I didn't realize I've never used any products like these. And this is not just because of the ad. This is, I will now be a consistent user of these two products. They are amazing.
I have a question, Mr. Apple.
I have an answer for you.
I have been a long user of the preserver. It was nice to get a second preserver from our friends at Manscaped. Huge fan of that. What does the toner do?
The toner just gives you a fresh vibe. It's almost like this is your deodorant. This is your cologne. What does cologne do?
Yeah.
Just gives you an extra sense of
it
being fresh.
Enhances the vibes.
It enhances the vibes. The deodorant is you put under the pits. For this one, you're putting it in another region.
Yeah.
And then this is your cologne. This is your Polo Ralph Lauren. This is the couple sprays before you go out and you're feeling like $1 million. That's what it does for you.
Have you worn the boxers yet?
Oh,
yes.
The boxers are
That's what I've
best.
had friends, close friends that put in some orders that always support any sponsors, which I appreciate. And again, like buying any of the sponsor stuff, like it's a great way to help the show. The boxers I keep hearing good things about. And the promo code works for any product, right, Jack?
Yes.
Every product.
Mm-hmm.
Any product. Like it doesn't matter. There's not a payment minimum. Like if you just want to get the toner and the preserver,
just the toner. Peter sold everybody on just the toner.
Yeah, if you want to get ball perfume, like you can do that. It's like an $8 purchase on the site. Like you can get 20% off that using promo code JB Show. So it doesn't matter. There is you don't have to get the performance package. You can get anything within the performance package using code JB Show, all caps. Again, 20% off, free worldwide shipping. Now, here is something that I want to say. I'm a huge fan of finding really creative ways to waste my time.
Okay.
And I found a great way to waste half an hour. I read the newspaper that they sent us in the care package. It was creative as fuck. I loved it.
There was a newspaper in there?
There was a newspaper in there, and it was all
revisit my
about how
package.
Manscaped is changing testicular grooming. It was awesome.
It really is. I was floored by these products. The Crop Preserver Ball Deodorant and the toner. I was like, what even are these? And then now I can't not use them anymore.
So How about that? All right. Here it is. Get 20% off and free shipping with the code JBShow at manscaped.com. 20% off with free shipping. Use code JBShow. Unlock your confidence. Always use the right tools for
And
the
if you
job.
want a link, it's in the episode description.
There we go. Easy peasy. All right, back to baseball. Here we go. Astros, Phillies. We just walked around the diamond. Let's talk lineup as a whole. I want to go offense, defense, pitch or starting rotation, bullpen, who has the edge, why, and then we make our picks. We also talk through World Series MVP. Lineup, offense, who's got the edge here? Do we say Astros?
Yes, but it's very close.
It's closer than we would have ever imagined.
Like if I give the Astros a 10 out of 10, I give the Phillies a 9 out of 10.
I think it's closer than like any of the other aspects.
I agree.
We'll talk about that here.
Yeah.
Defense, I think it's the Astros and it's nowhere close, right?
It's laughable.
It's laughable.
But it might not matter. It might not matter. Like that defense could, depending on how the series goes, could not matter.
Again, the Astros bullpen blows the Phillies bullpen out of the water.
But
trimming the fat.
Let's look at the best 4 to their best 4. Because Seranthony Dominguez is as good of a reliever as we have in Major League Baseball right now. Jose Alvarado is as good of a lefty as any lefty is right now. David Robertson is that grizzled vet who's been there before, who will not be nervous in the big spots. I texted the group chat. I thought it was funny in like these winner go home scenarios. You got David Robertson pumping 91 after all we see in the playoffs now is 100 mile an hour heat, but it's like David Robertson with the 92 cutter and whatever that it is working. And then you have like who else is in their bullpen too? Who am I forgetting?
Bellatti's been great.
Yeah,
Bellatti's been good.
Brogdon's been fine.
I like Brogdon, man. I'm a fan of watching Connor Brogdon pitch. There's no rhyme or reason here. I think he's a tall, lanky, whippy dude, and I think that he's got some stuff that can curl.
I don't want any part of Brad Hand. Don't want any part of him.
I want a lot of Brad Hand.
I feel like I'm forgetting one reliever. Am I not?
I don't think so.
Zach
Nick
Eflin.
Nelson?
Zach Eflin. Zach Eflin's been good for them in this postseason so far.
Yeah.
So that 4 combined with a couple other guys, this is a very solid back end of the bullpen, which is the most important when you have Wheeler and Nola going 6-7 at a minimum. So
I do think that the bullpen is closer than we thought. And then again, I think that the pitching staff, the starting pitching, especially with the top end, is closer. The problem is just the Astros are built to outlast them. But if they're going to Nola on short rest and Nola's able to pitch on short rest, how does that look like? We have to look at the rotation almost like a 1.75 Aaron Nola's.
Yeah.
Is that the proper way to look at it? Like, but at the same time, the Astros could go to Verlander on short rest or whatever. So it's tough, but assuming that they go to Nola on short rest, that does bridge the gap between these two rotations. It really does. Because even if Nola is 3/4 of what he normally is on short rest, that's better than what we're going to see from the Astros for the most part, unless Lance McCullers is on another planet. I think it's at least a push with what Javier is been doing. It's closer than we think if they manage the staff the way we think they will. If we see a Aaron Savali type of situation, where they decide to go to whoever in game 4, that'd be insane.
Especially a lefty against this Astros offense that is maybe baseball's best against lefties. You cannot have Bailey Falter pitch.
Man. Suarez game 3 is a huge deficit.
Terrifying.
And that's not a knock on Suarez. He's a really good big league starter. He's a really solid big league starter. But if we're talking about the postseason, we're talking about the World Series here. That's the biggest gap. They hedge it with Nola on short rest. It's obviously Astros advantage. And my biggest concern is not Nola on short rest. It's what kind of start are they going to get from Ranger Suarez?
Yeah.
Here's my thing, though. Citizens Bank Park, 5-0 Phillies. They have just scored more runs and allowed a guy like Suarez. Like, I think that we have an overplay in game 3 where the Phillies offense will show up against anyone. That crowd, like if we're talking about home field advantage, I know the Astros have great home field advantage in Minute Maid, but that home field with Phillies fans just screaming noise like you've never heard before, that is a that is maybe the hardest place to play a sport right now in America.
So that was my line of thinking. If a game flies over the over, right? If a game is going to be 5 runs north of the total set for it, the Phillies win. That's a game that the Phillies win. I think the Phillies win slugfest. But my thing is, how do you turn a game against this Astros pitching staff into a slugfest? I don't think you can.
I think it's hard. And I think, but it's like when I look at how good these pitchers are, because Christian Javier is not perfect. We saw him be perfect against a Yankees team that he just owns at this point.
All year.
Verlander just owns the Yankees. So we saw like some vulnerability against the Mariners for a guy like Justin Verlander. Like when I'm looking at the starting pitching, like when I'm trying to handicap this series, I look at Nola and Wheeler in the front 2 games. Like if they can split that, and I don't want to get straight into it now because I have a whole bit that I'm going to do, but I take Nola and Wheeler over any 2 starters the Astros can give you. I do.
I think that's fair.
It is.
But like Verlander, I think that one start was tough. It was off a longer break than he's accustomed to from off of the regular season.
This is a long break now too.
Yeah, I don't know exactly how many days it was the first time around. But yeah, I take that 2-headed monster with anybody. I would with the Phillies. So I think that's fair. Again, that's where my concern really comes in is game 3. It is the difference in game 3. And it's really going to come down to, can the Phillies get to, it's going to be Javier game 3, we think, right? Probably.
Colors. Yeah.
Or
whatever.
Colors.
I
Regardless.
bet Javier. I bet
Can
it's
they
Javier.
I would go Javier.
I would go Javier too. If they go McCullers, then I definitely could see a slugfest. I just think, McCullers is a little bit more one-dimensional. And he's just not going to be able to dominate you with the fastball the way Javier can. It's tough. And I think the big X factor besides Aaron Nola is going to be how they respond in that game 3. And if they split in those first 2, I mean, that's what it's all about. But yeah, what do you think, Jack?
So the way that I see this going about is Aram and I have our popcorn ready and we're just enjoying the shit out of games 1 and 2. Aram's really panicked during game 3. I'm really panicked during game 4. And Peter is like in the lab looking up at the TV while these games are happening. Very similar to the scene in Moneyball where Billy Bean is working out very aggressively and will occasionally turn the volume on the TV and not look at it. That's how I see Peter watching this World Series.
I will be in a dark room, all lights off, just staring. So actually the complete opposite.
The spin.
Yeah, just actually the complete opposite of that Moneyball scene, I'd say.
Okay, interesting. It's tough. I'm going to stand by game 4 being the most important one, but I absolutely see where you're coming from in game 3. And game 3 is in Philly. So we'll see. Should we say who wins and how many games now?
Let's do it.
Okay. Aram, you first.
Astros in 6, which is probably the most common prediction there, but yeah, I'm going to go Astros in 6.
I need to hear your reasoning. Break it down for me a little bit. Break it down. This is gold. Break it down.
Yeah. I do think there's a scenario where the Phillies push a game 7, and that's where Aaron Nola is great on short rest and Zach Wheeler is great in that second outing. I think that's very possible. So for the sake of fun, I adjust Astros in 7, which I think you get the best out of the 2-headed monster. And I think the gaps are going to be too big to fill. You get a short start from maybe Ranger Suarez, which leaves you a little bit exposed. We talk about the back end of the bullpen, how good it is for the Phillies, but the difference is we talk about a slugfest and how that could go in the Phillies' favor. But I could also make the opposite argument. If we go to a slugfest similar to an extra innings game where we're seeing a revolving door of relievers and pitchers, we just talked about it. No matter who the hell the Astros put in, they have the capability of being lights out for multiple innings. Don't think you can say the same about the Phillies. So I think in those ugly games, we're going to see that depth that the Astros have start to shine and be a difference maker. And I'm worried about that in game 3. I'm worried about that if Nola is not able to be efficient. That's what he does. He is efficient. But let's say he's not efficient on short rest. How do they respond to that after maybe using their bullpen more than they wanted to in game 3? I could just see it being a situation here where the Phillies are toe-to-toe with them and the Astros outlast them. And I think that's what they've done all postseason. And I think they're going to do it one last time here in the World Series and outlast the Phillies.
We haven't even talked about Mini Verlander and Hunter Brown, a guy who can come in and just shut down innings. Luis Garcia, a guy who can shut down innings too.
They're if need be guys.
Like let's say Christian Javier, young pitcher in Citizens Bank Park, like gets bombed a little bit. Then they put in a Luis Garcia or a Hunter Brown to weather the storm, and then they go 4 shutout. Like, would anyone be shocked if that happened?
No,
I wouldn't be at all. So I agree with you, Aram. That's what I was like when I was writing this article. I came into this going with the Astros. And the more I thought about each individual game, and maybe this is my complete respect for Wheeler and Nola and how truly good I think these guys are. And this is the way I thought about it. Games 1 and 2 with Wheeler and Nola against Justin Verlander and Framber Valdez. We know how well that the Phillies can also hit left-handed pitching. And Justin Verlander is 0-7 in the World Series. That is a stat.
That's a stat.
Justin Verlander has not been he's been overall good in the playoffs, but in terms of the decisions, 0-7. So Justin Verlander and Framber Valdez against Wheeler and Nola. I think it's fair to say that they split. I don't think that's unfair to say. Game 1, game 2, however you want to call it. Maybe Verlander wins in game 1, but then Wheeler beats up on the Astros or the other vice versa. Then you go into 3 games in Citizens Bank Park. Ranger Suarez, then you have probably Nola, then Wheeler again. I think it's fair to say where the Phillies are 5-0 in Citizens Bank Park, where it seems almost impossible for teams to win in that environment, that the Phillies can win 2 of those games. Not all 3, but 2 of those games. Remember, there's some guys on the Astros where they are young. Like when we say Hunter Brown, we say Christian Javier. They haven't felt this Citizens Bank craziness yet. So I am giving the Phillies 2 of those wins. So now we're going back to Houston with the Phillies having a 3-2 series lead with Ranger Suarez starting game 6. I am giving the Astros that game. So now it's 3-3 into game 7. And you have Nola, Wheeler, all the bullpen guys. All the pressure is on Houston, but they then do have home field advantage because the Phillies are coming into this, in my opinion, as free as possible. They shocked the world. They shouldn't be here. The Astros should be here. They were projected to be here. All the pressure is on them to win this series. Then in game 7, when I have Nola, I have Wheeler, and I have the entire bullpen and a free-flowing offense, I think the Phillies win that game. They win in 7. Phillies in 7.
Jack?
I just hope both teams have fun. All right, MVPs.
You didn't
come on.
I'm kidding. I thought about it in a very similar way. And for the sake of brevity, I'm literally just going to walk you through what computed in my brain.
I love it.
Game 1, Verlander, Nola. Give it to Verlander in Houston. Game 2, Wheeler and Framber. Give it to Wheeler. Split going back to Philly. Game 3, lefty Ranger Suarez against the Astros offense. Give me the Astros in game 3, 2-1 Astros. Game 4, Nola on short rest in front of a home crowd. That's fucking sick that he's on short rest. Philly's going to be behind Nola against McCullers.
He's going to be pure adrenaline.
McCullers, so like command issues. That is not a good recipe in Citizens Bank.
Yeah, I mean, give me a torqued up Nola over McCullers. So 2-2 at this point, right? Game 5 is going to be back to Verlander against Wheeler. Wheeler at home, give me Wheeler at home. So 3-2 Philly. Game 6 is going to be Valdez and Ranger in Houston. Give me Valdez and give me Houston. Game 7 going to be an exhausted Aaron Nola against Christian Javier making his second start. Give me Javier in Houston. Astros in 7.
Outlast. That's kind of where I was at too. Yeah. Which the beautiful thing is really, I think we're on the same page here. And game 7, anything can happen.
Yep.
And that's where I hope that's what happens, right? I hope that's what happens. Then I don't care. I don't care who wins. But if we get 7 games, unbelievable.
Especially
That would
after 9 combined in the LCS.
Yeah.
Like we got 5
Yeah,
in
it's like-
the NL, 4 in the AL.
Yeah,
Like,
thanks
we
a
need
lot,
some-
Padres and Yankees. Thank you.
Yeah, jackasses.
One win between the two of them.
This series is fascinating. You have the underdog story, the team that was projected to be a fringe wild card team that changed managers in the middle of the season, that made questionable moves, and now is in the World Series with Bryce Harper with the legacy postseason facing off against the most well-rounded, swept their way in team with home field advantage.
So
this is an incredible series.
Here's the really interesting part too. And I think this is something that we have to acknowledge. Dusty Baker has been there, right? I'm going back to the World Series. Rob Thompson has done a lot of things very well to get here. A lot of things very well. But I don't know how much Rob Thompson has been challenged to manage in the postseason so far. And that's not a slight on him. The team's just been great, right? They took control against the Cardinals. And I mean, they won that series pretty easily against the Padres for the most part. I would say maybe the Braves was that challenge in spots, but they kind of boat raced them in a lot of ways too. So this is going to be one of those where it's a chess match. And how does Rob Thompson rise to the occasion? I have no opinion. I have no idea. I just can't wait to find out. This is a guy that I think is going to be a great manager. Obviously, the Phillies feel that way too. But sometimes you got to learn the hard way to become a great manager. And this might be one of those instances where he learns the hard way. Dusty's a vet. He's been there. He's got a lot more weapons to use. The margin for error is thinner for Rob Thompson, right? You go to the wrong guy here or there, or you deplete your bullpen in this game, and now it doesn't shake out the way you thought. You don't have as many backup plans. Dusty can go to the wrong guy, yank him quick, go to another guy. Like, he's got a lot more weapons at his disposal. How does Rob Thompson rise to the occasion and manage his team?
And Dusty's mind is going to be working a little bit slower than Rob Thompson's, right? Like, he's going to have a slower heart rate. I'm saying, like, he's going to be more calm, cool, collected.
I thought you were calling him old.
I thought so too.
Not calling him old.
No, it's true. He's gonna be a little bit more calm.
He's gonna be able to take that breath and say, okay, like, this is what I've been doing for years. Versus Rob Thompson, he's like, holy fuck, I'm in the World Series.
Yeah. And the Astros too, 6 straight ALCSs. They, in the last 6 times, they've been to the championship 4 times. They are 1-3.
Heart rate as a team going to be a lot lower than the Phillies.
Agreed, but they have not proven that consistently they get over the top. While they have been the juggernaut, this is not they've won 2 straight and they're going on their 3rd. This is not they've been 4 times and won 2 of them. They've won 1 of them.
Oh, and they ran into the overachieving hot team last year, right? And I think, and that's not to take anything away from the Braves. They're a fantastic team. But last year they were that hot, overachieving team that rode it out, and they outlasted the better team on paper, right? So it's going to be very, very fascinating. Let's, I guess, wrap up with the MVPs.
Yes.
Or who's going to win the MVP?
Let's do, if the Phillies win, here's who's going to be the MVP. If the Astros win, here's who's going to be the MVP. I'll kick us off. If the Phillies win, I think Bryce Harper is going to be the MVP. He's at plus 700. Legacy cementing postseason Bryce Harper. What I will say is plus 1,800 for JT Realmuto is very exciting to look at. So that's my thought there. Very quick. But I do think if the Phillies win the World Series, it's because Bryce Harper did something fucking stupidly spectacular again.
Arm, you want to go ahead?
Yeah. So here's my thing. I think if the Phillies win, kind of what I alluded to earlier, it's because of Aaron Nola. And again, it's going to be like this historic postseason performance from a pitcher. Aaron Nola's plus 1,500, by the way, and which is a crazy bet.
Crazy.
I generally don't like taking pitchers in these series, but Nola's going to get every opportunity, right? And I think if the Phillies win, it's because Aaron Nola gave you 2 great starts and maybe a 3rd good outing. Like that is why I think if they're going to win, it's going to be because of Aaron Nola. I think Harper will be great, but if you have 15 or 18 innings from Aaron Nola, it's impossible for him not to win it in that regard. For the Astros, I just think
Wait, hold on. We'll do Phillies.
Yeah,
Let me
Peter
wrap up
Phillies,
on Phillies.
and
Okay,
then
yeah,
We'll do
snake
Astros.
around with Astros.
Got it.
So you guys had my picks. I wrote in the article. Bryce Harper is my favorite pick over there, plus 650, plus 700, whatever. I think he will put the team on his back offensively and lead this team. The storyline, the narrative, it all makes sense. That's my favorite pick. And my second favorite pick is the one Aram mentioned with Aaron Nola at plus whatever you can get him at. I think, to Aram's point, it's a little bit scary taking a pitcher, but it's not like it's never been done before. In 2019, this is why I think the 2019 Nationals comparison that's used for everyone actually makes sense here, because who won it in 2019? Steven Strasburg at the front of their rotation. Going back to 2014, Madison Bumgarner for the San Francisco Giants. Aram talked about Aaron Nola could have that Madison Bumgarner type postseason, or Zach Wheeler. That's why I think I'm going to be sprinkling on Zach Wheeler too. I think you go with the hitter and Bryce Harper. I mean, obviously, like, someone could just come out of the woodworks and crush. Like, what if, Jeremy Pena won the ALCS MVP? Like, what if a Rhys Hoskins hits a home run in every game and wins? Like, anything like that could happen. But what we can do is look at history and how are the Phillies going to win this? Probably on the backs of Bryce Harper and on the backs of those two starters. So my picks are Bryce Harper, Aaron Nola, and I think Zach Wheeler is worth a sprinkle. Depending in that game 7, like, let's say they go to Aaron Nola for 3 innings one time through the lineup, then Wheeler, let's say he goes 5 or something, and Zach Wheeler gave them also 2 great starts. Like, Jack, to your point, let's say Aaron Nola loses game 1 against Verlander, Wheeler wins, then wins his next start, then gives them 5. He could then end up winning that award. So I think that's how you go with the Phillies.
Yeah. All right. Stros, Peter, Aram, me.
So Aram, when you were talking about Bregman, I was on the exact same page as you were. And when I said lift up the hood, who has been the most consistent best hitter for the Astros in the playoffs so far, and that is Alex Bregman. I don't see a pitcher for Houston really taking that step where it's like, man, it was all on Verlander's back.
He won't be needed. There's no pitcher that'll be needed that much.
Exactly. And I think Jordan is a great pick here just because he's fucking unbelievable. And you got a bunch of righties coming at you and Nola and Wheeler, and I'm pretty sure Jordan does pretty good against right-handed pitching. So that's a good one. But then I looked at Bregman's splits, and you wouldn't think that maybe Bregman is a reverse splits guy. He's almost got a 900 OPS in the regular season against righties. He can hit anybody. And then if you put him against Ranger, I'm sure he'll do okay. So I'm going to go with Alex Bregman as my pick, and I'm not sprinkling anywhere else. That is my pick if the Astros were to win it.
You or me, Jack?
You.
All right, nice. Yeah, so Bragg is 100%. I'm in on that one too. The way he has looked at the plate too, just from like a pure just baseball standpoint, his takes are so easy. He looks so comfortable. He looks confident. Talk about a guy that's been there. He's not going to be fazed by Philly. He's been hated and booed and yelled at for the last several years. I don't think it's going to be anything new. It'll be a little bit louder, but that's about it in Philly for him. The Peñas of the world might be a little bit different, but I think that guy's built for those moments. I really want to sprinkle on somebody else, though. I do. And Yuli. I think it's got to be Yuli Gurriel.
Yeah.
Plus 3,000. Ride the hot hand. Why not? Because baseball makes no fucking sense. And Yuli Gurriel is going to be the dude, the Steve Pierce to win the MVP of this World Series, right? Gurriel is such a good hitter, man. And when he's locked in, I know it was a bad year for him, but he's such a good hitter.
Such a good hitter.
That when he's locked in, he can, just be as consistent as anybody. Those odds are crazy for me. If you're getting the guy that's going to be in the lineup, what we presume every single day at that money with the way he's hitting, I'm in. So, but Bregman's absolutely my pick. Sprinkle on my guy, Yuli Gurriel.
Yeah, baseball makes no fucking sense. That's why Martin Maldonado is my pick. Disagree. What I will say is Kyle Tucker's been a little too quiet this postseason.
Yeah, right.
And there's a lot of right-handed arms that Kyle Tucker's going to see. And plus 1,000, plus 600 for Jordan is very low. Like I was thinking, I was like, that doesn't feel exciting enough because he's the leader, right? Isn't he the odds-on favorite to win this award?
Yep.
I do like Kyle Tucker here, much to your guys' point about right-handed pitching. Like Jordan going to see a lot of right-handed pitching. Kyle Tucker's also going to see a lot of right-handed pitching. We know he's going to play exceptional defense. And you know what? If he parks a couple, I really like it.
It's crazy. I actually just had this weird vision of him robbing a home run and right at Minute Maid.
Yeah.
So just letting you know that already happened.
Yes.
So just that'll be baked in there too. We'll have the highlight reel catch. It's just gonna be about how much he hits, but the robbed home run's already done. It already happened.
So full transparency here. Besides going on TikTok to post, I don't spend much time on TikTok, but when I do go, I'll scroll on the following page for a little bit. Trent, our friend Book It Trent, he his thing where he says, I already saw the first touchdown or something.
I haven't seen that. That's really funny.
So funny. It makes me
really
laugh
funny.
really hard. It's like, I already saw it.
He hasn't hit what all year. He's over. There have been so many primetime games. There's someone that tracks his bets. I think he's 0 for 17 on those, but you can't take away that man's confidence. He already saw it.
I already saw it. And then he does this thing. It was funny. Very funny.
Gosh. But yeah, I already saw the Kyle Tucker rob home run.
I love that. Okay.
World
cool. That's
Series.
it.
Wow.
I've got Astros in 7. Arm's got Astros in 7. Peter's got Phillies in 7.
I hope we're all right. Just 7 games. Just
Please
give us
be
7 games, please.
I would
Baseball
trade
gods,
being
please.
wrong for 7 games any day
Any
of
day.
the week. I'll be wrong. I don't give a shit. I've been wrong before. I'll be wrong again. Just give
for
me 7.
For 7 games of this World Series with the star power. I mean, I'm really excited. The last thing I want to say, I'm really excited to see the TV ratings. I was worried we were going to see a Braves Astros rematch. That was my prediction, earlier in midway through the season. And I think there would have been a little bit of a again.
This again.
Of course, we would have enjoyed it because it's 2 great teams and serious baseball fans would enjoy it. But there's a novelty to this that is really cool. Not only that, the last time the Phillies were in the World Series, I went with my dad, and it's one of my favorite games I've been to. It didn't start till 11 o'clock. It was Game 3 against the Rays, and oh my gosh, it was rain delayed. I was there till 2 a.m. But it was one of my favorite memories, and I couldn't believe that it's been that long since the Phillies have been to the World Series. So it's really an awesome matchup in a lot of ways. And it's just what makes baseball so fun. And I hope a lot of people tune in. I hope the ratings are great. I think they will be. And this is going to be I think this is going to be a classic in a lot of ways.
I know we bet on the ratings last year. Do you want to place a little wager on the ratings?
Are you going to be the Debbie Downer who says the ratings are going to be low again?
I don't think so. Give me a number and I'll tell you which side I'm on.
We got to research this. We'll do this on the next podcast. I'll give you an over under because I did cash that bet, by the way.
Yeah. So I spent an entire episode saying nice things about Aram.
You never really did it.
Tomorrow, the Just Baseball first team. We're going to go through all of it too. We wanted to do this episode a little bit early to give it some time to breathe. But the first team is coming tomorrow and we'll make that bet on the ratings. Use code October 15. Get yourself some Just Baseball merch. 15% off. That code is still alive and well. The best way to support this podcast is to get yourself some Manscaped by use code JB Show, all caps, which is in the episode description, to get 20% off free worldwide shipping to Manscaped. Use code October 15 in order to get 15% off Just Baseball merch, or just give us 5 stars. And if you have any comments about how we're doing the show, anything that you want to see, be sure to leave that in the review, as well as on YouTube too. Hit us with a subscribe, give us a like, let us know in the comments who you think is going to win. This is going to be one of my favorite worlds because it reminds me so much of Braves Astros in that way. And what a series that was. I mean, this is must watch TV and we're going to be glued to it. I can't wait. With that, thank you, everybody.